Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after spending a night with Runsky again and being told the story of Old Renai, how it came to be and how it fell. We found out that Runsky himself is a demon born from, I guess you could say, the ruins, or what was left of I guess, yeah, what was left of the ruined city of Renai. He was born from the demons that were left behind when they all left, when the wolves left, after the city was overrun by whatever it is that was overrunning the city or town, the area. We also know that Runsky himself is whispering, is influencing Cadgan. He may have had some hand in how Cadgan was healed, because after Hector came back, he was like, "Oh, you're all right. How did that happen?" And it was probably Runsky in some way or another. Also, Manolino became aware of the haze leaf that grew in the ruins where Hector and Runsky were canoodling, and he became very interested in what was going on there, and he was accosting the people, in particular, what's his name? The old guy, Cadgan's quote-unquote father. He made him collect a sample of the haze leaf, which was very dangerous, but thankfully he was fine. But yeah, that's mostly what happened. Yeah. They canoodled again, Hector and Runsky, but they used quote-unquote protection, a protection rune in order to ensure that nothing would happen again. But yeah. Anywho, so we shall be seeing a bit more about Cadgan, and we will be introduced to a new character. Yes, that's about as much as I know about this update, so yeah. So without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. Act 2, Chapter 7, Demon's Roots. No one recalls seeing a carriage arriving in town, nor a stranger riding on the back of a beast. He simply showed up in Arwal's nest a few days after the haze leaf was discovered. He introduced himself as Silverith, paid a hefty sum in gold, and without a care for his fellow dragon's questions, asked to see everything on the menu. It's a wonder nobody saw him arriving in town. You already can't miss him, a dragon about as tall as Arwal, but with twice the presence. He has a hardened look, and keeps his shoulders held up high, and then there's that ashy smell around him, only barely covered by incense and that peculiar mane. That last feature spoke of a mixed heritage. Judging from his fangs and that shape of his molars, I figured he most likely carried lion blood. He hadn't said anything about himself, but the moment that I saw him, I felt it in my nerves. He had been sent by the Inquisition. A glance at his clothes was all the confirmation that I needed. A leaf-shaped pendant sporting a dead tree over a rising sun, and the moon pendant hanging from his wrists, both symbols of nature. Even Cadgan seemed apprehensive, looking at the dragon from the corner of his eye. He was still sampling Arwal's cooking by the time that we left. I wouldn't see more of him until a few days later, when rumors about the Duke authorizing the burning of the haze leaf began circulating. A crowd gathered around the ritual site to bear witness, almost like a small leaf-burning festival. But instead of demons dancing around the bonfire, I arrived to find Silverith standing in front of the ruins, head lifted and his hands joined in prayer. Wolves, lions, all of you that come from faraway lands. I ask you, what makes a demon? They run in opposition to nature, yes. They are soul-stealing fiends. But more crucially, a demon cannot lie. For instance, he points at a scrawny wolf in the crowd, a small grin forming in his mouth. The smaller man looks around, his ears lowered. You there. You would beat me at an arm wrestling contest. Even a lie this obvious and petty, a demon would be unable to tell. The haze leaf writhes with indifference as the dragon falls to his knees, raising his hands up to the skies. In his palms, I see the glint of a gold coin. The heart is a most peculiar thing, so delicate, yet no matter how you lacerate it, it'll always bandage itself with some new hope or goal. From the coin emanates an unfamiliar fire. It doesn't disturb the dragon in the slightest, even as it grows and advances towards the ruins. It is not passionate nor just, but simply a purifying flame made to consume everything that is an affront to nature. And as it envelops the ruins, Silver stands up and turns to face us. His body is mostly a silhouette in front of the inferno. Demons, however, use the truth as a weapon to strip our hearts and reopen old wounds. They worm their way inside in search of one thing, your true wish. They force you to look at something fundamental, yet unattainable, and rekindle the greed, the ambition, and the madness to pursue it at any cost. They promise that no matter how impossible, destructive, or selfish your wish may be, they can make it a reality, even if, particularly if, it means subverting nature. I've seen families undone by demons, fathers so consumed by their obsessions that they allowed their children and spouses to starve. I've seen. He is calm and collected even as the fires rage behind him, but he hesitates. His features are darkened, impossible to read, but the way his voice falters feels genuine. I've seen a mother who wished for her child to never grow, and when they protested and tried to escape, she returned them to the womb from whence they came. Not even the childs are spared of the demon's temptations. Those are by far the most disturbing cases. A child's single truth can be naive and deranged, unassuming and yet terribly cruel, all at once. Their wishes are the most fearsome of all. Demons strip away the innocent lies, the selfish kindness, the sense of right and wrong that upholds a community. Their so-called truth is a brutalizing force that destroys all else. That, my brothers and sisters, is why the demons cannot lie, why their promises of truth ought to be feared. He pauses and looks at each man, woman, and child in the crowd. Even with my attempt at remaining discreet, I feel his gaze boring at me. One day, this too may become a legend. Anywhere else, this tale would be buried and forgotten, but Renai isn't quite like that, isn't it? This land is marked by stories of demons and their exploits after all. For the time being, I ask this of all of you present here. Beware the one that would peel away your layers and speak about your true wish, because that is, most certainly, a demon. And look after those of you who cannot tear their eyes away from the truth, for they are the most vulnerable to the evil prowling your town. As the flames burn the haze leaf to ashes, I cannot but think of how gentle it looks, almost like a caress or a hug. The vines and the purple leaves crumble under the love, and the scenes and the writings engraved on the stone pillars fade as they do. As for the Inquisitioner, all I can make out is the white of his eyes moving as he observes his audience once more, and this time he lingers on me, making no attempt to hide it. I remain a prisoner to his oppressive gaze until the flame, having finished its job, extinguishes itself. So, that's what happened. Cadgan had missed the burning, with him being in the hospital to help care for Irnin that afternoon. In the end, I just couldn't send him home with the injuries that he had suffered from being thrown around by Manuel's guards. Cadgan had spent the last few days giving a hand at the hospital and keeping an eye on the forest shrine when time allowed it. The wolf takes a long sip from his mug, his eyes fixed on somewhere distant. Between the Inquisitioner and the expedition, I have a busy week ahead of me. Do you think that he'll seek you out? I imagine the first people that he will want to consult will be the Duke and the priests. I was only an apprentice, but after he speaks with Irnin, I figured that he'll want a word with me too. I wonder if that's why he was staring at me, We were eating together when he first came here, so maybe he recognizes me? At least that's what I hoped. Runskai's smell isn't so thick on me that he immediately detected it, isn't it? I wonder what he's up to now. He'd probably scoff at the idea that dragon is trying to get in his way, but I'm still worried. Well, as long as what happened in the ritual site doesn't repeat, the Inquisitioner should soon run out of leads, or so I hope. I'm still wondering about how he introduced himself. Father Silvereth. Do Inquisitioners usually live in monasteries? I don't think so, and I've never heard of them using a title like that. Perhaps it is a cover of sorts. You said that he used a coin to conjure fire. Yes, it must have been some sort of artifact. I've never seen anything like that, though. By the way, how did it go with Irnan? He's acting tough, as usual. Did any of the other doctors give you any trouble? No. Why do you ask? I didn't want to worry you with this, but shortly after admitting him to the hospital, I was warned that he couldn't stay here for that long. And now that the expedition started again, they might want to send him back home. But why? He can't return there in this condition. Yes, so I started thinking where to send him. Cadgan's home was an obvious choice, but with how busy he usually is, he wouldn't be able to keep an eye on Irnan. It'd be functionally identical to just sending him back to the forest. Then there's Teresa, but she's already busy raising her newborn, and I'd rather not overburden her. That left only one option. Do you know Finbar, the blacksmith? He's been staying at home since he got injured in the valley. I asked him and he does have a spare bed for Irnan. He's like an uncle to me. We can trust him. Not that Finbar or anybody in his family knows medicine, but I can stop by and handle that. I just need somebody watching over Irnan while I'm away. I'd be very grateful if you could arrange that. Yes, leave it to me. Tomorrow I'll tell the head doctor. By the way, how are you holding up? Me? I'm alright, all things considered. I don't know how you managed to keep your cool through all of this. After a moment, he takes a sip from his drink and smiles slightly. Dealing with situations like this is my job, that's all. As I'm approaching the Baron and the hospital comes into view, so does a carriage halted right in front of it. One of those tall line guards is carrying a crate from it and into the building. I'm curious about what he's doing, but quickly that feeling is overridden by panic. Oh, Irnan, I hope the guards aren't coming into that main ward. I can't imagine the old wolf would react well to seeing him there. Much to my relief upon reaching the reception, I see the linesman dropping the boxes right there. He is currently talking to the head doctor, his hands on a pile of 3 crates. This is all. His Grace sincerely wishes it will be useful to you. Thank you. We will take care of it from here. With a bow, the guard excuses himself and goes outside. Not long after, I hear the beasts outside grunting and the carriage's wheels screeching as they begin to turn. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Hector. Even as I greet him, the old lion's wary gazes settle on the pile of crates. I tilt my head at it too, curious. Did His Grace consider it appropriate to send us more supplies? Or equipment, perhaps? You could say that. This is his father's lab equipment. I wasn't aware that he'd send us this until the carriage arrived earlier today. Although, much like me, Dad used to travel with his own tools. The Duke's mansion was much better equipped for research. Many afternoons he spent cooped up in Leopoldino's laboratory as he tried to find an explanation for Cadgan's condition. A child like me wasn't allowed there, naturally. Oh, I'm sure that it'll be of use. The head doctor's smile betrays some apprehension. This isn't a research facility and Leopoldino's scientific interests went beyond medicine. We'll have to go through this to see what is actually of use to us. It may have not borne fruit, but Dad worked hard to understand Cadgan's condition back then. Even now, I haven't stopped thinking about it myself. Manuel says that it was like a sleeping disorder, and that the anomalous presbylium readings were likely caused by something else. But what exactly? No matter how many details that I can recall, nothing comes to mind that could explain that. All I know is that it wasn't Dad doing something wrong, and I don't want to say it merely because I'm his son. When we first arrived at the mansion, Dad had a private audience with Leopoldino. When he examined Cadgan later that day, he said the Duke was correct about what Cadgan's Prismillion readings would look like. Leopoldino did have some interest in medicine, but as the head doctor said, he was no doctor. Hell, I'm not sure if he was a researcher. All I've heard is that he used to hire people to do the part for him. So, if he knew that much about Cadgan before Dad arrived, then somebody else must have examined him beforehand. The Prismillion readings after Cadgan fainted shocked Dad, yes, but that is the sort of phenomenon one doesn't fully grasp until laying his eyes on it. Being a proper doctor now, I had figured he suspected Leopoldino was exaggerating, or like Manuel, that somebody committed a mistake during the previous examinations. That had been my first guess. And I just can't imagine Dad was Leopoldino's first choice. My younger self couldn't put it into words, but it always seemed strange that the Duke would hire us. Leopoldino learned about Dad from one of his wealthy clients putting in a good word for him. But why would the Duke rely on a doctor from some Badger town rather than on his line friends? But if he did hire his friends at first and only turned to Dad once they failed, then it makes sense. Then there's what Cadgan said when we first met. We were in the desolate corridor in the mansion. He opened his arms, inviting me to observe our surroundings, and proclaimed demons had scared away the people living there. And now that I'm recalling it again, I can't help but think that there was a sinister meaning behind those words. It's not that Runsky was involved. He would have mentioned demons to spook me regardless. But maybe there were more people in the mansion, and something did happen to make them go away. And those could have been the doctors who studied him before Dad. Damn it, the old Cadgan would be so satisfied if he knew his prank is causing me a headache so many years later. In any case, I'm certain other people studied him with similar results. I'm not convinced by Manuel's explanation as long as the Prismillion readings remain a mystery. Well, it's too late to find answers for Dad. Cadgan's still around and he's not as stoic as he looks. It'd be no wonder if questions about his condition still haunted him. I wish that I could take that weight off of his shoulders. But I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. The truth behind the cyclical lethargy has evaded me for so long that I'm not sure it's even within my reach. Whatever is in these crates is unlikely to change that, but maybe it can give me more closure instead. Do you need help unpacking these, sir? I can volunteer. The lion closes his eyes. Paolo can handle it. Don't concern yourself with it. But with the expeditions we're starting, we might need to work at full capacity at any moment now. Don't you think that it'd be better to sort all of this now? My, why the interest? I just think that it'd be troublesome if all of this got in the way, and Paolo has to work the reception. It'd be unfair to leave it all to him. We should split the work. The lion shakes his head. I know that I'm being stubborn, but I want this. Very well. I'll allow it since your job has been nothing short of exemplary so far. I trust you will not neglect your usual duties. Understood? Yes, sir. One more thing, sir. It's about Irnin, the wolf that I brought the other day. Is he ready to head back home? No, but I'll see that he's transferred somewhere more appropriate for his continued recovery. I just need a little more time to finish accommodations. Tomorrow should all be ready. Very well, I will leave it in your hands. After stopping by Irnin's bed only to find him sound asleep, I help Paolo move the crates to one of the unoccupied wards. We pick one each to start digging through it. The first thing that sticks out to me is the smell, musty and slightly humid. It's like this crate had been sealed and left to sit in some dark basement for a long time. I am not too sure what I'll find. While Leopoldino did conduct some medical research, that was far from his main interest. If the Earth Helpers are anything to go by, he cared much more about finding ways to grow more crops. And once I remove the crate's lid, I see my suspicions are confirmed. Empty pots, seeds, and dead plants inside flasks, cattle, anatomical charts. Manuel just wanted to get rid of all of this, didn't he? I don't see how any of this would be helpful in a hospital. However, as I dig deeper, I find some interesting things. Glass bottles, torches, knives, Prismillion crystals, and even brewing equipment. Perhaps the same what Dad used all those years ago. It does show some age. How many days did Dad spend in front of these glass vials, scratching his head as he attempted to understand Cadgan's condition? Perhaps he'd look out the window and see us playing outside, as he was in the middle of work. I wonder what Cadgan was to Dad. Did he see him as a poor child, a patient, or an object of research? I thought that I was being slick back then, that he didn't notice me slipping out of our room to spend the night with Cadgan, but maybe he did and simply allowed it. Was he happy that I found a friend in him? Or was I getting Cadgan to cooperate all that he cared about? Dad was a kind man, I think, but I know that there's nothing that he wouldn't have forsaken for Oblon's sake, not even me. But are you any better, Hector? Didn't you forget all about Cadgan to jump into that demon's arms just a few weeks ago? It serves you right that the haze leaf appeared there and caught the Inquisition's attention. I may have tried to forget, but now I know that I just can't. It doesn't matter what Runsky offers me or how I try to justify it. The moment that Cadgan gives me the slightest hint of want, the tiniest ember, everything that I put away breaks out. Knowing Dad, he surely kept all his research writings down somewhere. Let's see. As I continue sorting the contents of the crate, a collection of tiny leather-bound journals catches my eye. The leather is rough to the touch, and the pages are distorted and tainted by time. I open one and see the ink has partially faded in some places and become smeared in others. Most of it is still readable, however. This seems to be research on crops. It's just notes on some experimental farming methods and magic. Some of it is rather wild. There is a part about burying copper pipes besides the crops and using magic to keep them healthy throughout the winter. Did Leopoldino write this? Did he realize what a powerful wizard you'd need to put this into practice? Or the amount of copper that you need? This could work for a while, but the constant stream of magic would eventually damage the pipes, and they'd need to be replaced. As I skim the books, I notice the handwriting changing. It seems like this was penned by several different authors. Then I suddenly stop at a certain page. On it are the schematics for an Earth Helper, or at least what seems like an early iteration of one. A small stake that uses a modified prismalian crystal as its core. Once it is buried so only the tip is sticking out, the user infuses it with magic to make it perform a predetermined spell. It's difficult to learn to use, but incredibly powerful for such a small artifact, Leopoldino's legacy given form. With a sigh, I close a journal and open up the next. I look over my shoulder at Paolo, but he seems too busy with his crate to notice me getting distracted. I knew it. It doesn't take me long to find Dad's writing in one of the journals. The page has a recipe for an elixir, struck out with a large cross. Below is the following note. When I first began monitoring the patient's layers, I jumped to what seemed like the most logical conclusion, that the outburst of life force that takes place when the cyclical lethargy renders him unconscious must originate somewhere from reason, the only layer that eludes the Prismalian's eye. However, just because reason is invisible, that doesn't mean that it never has been studied. We don't understand its relationship with life force, but whenever a patient suffers an illness that can't be explained by an imbalance within the other 4 layers, it follows then the imbalance would be located within reason. But no matter how many cases I study, or how many experts I speak with, none of them match what the patient is experiencing. Could it be that our understanding of reason thus far is too incomplete, or perhaps even flawed? While certainly possible, I believe that it'd be worth it to explore some other possibilities first, and that is the purpose of this elixir. He then went on to explain the purpose of each ingredient. The gist of it is that he suspects that there might be something else invisible to both the Prismalian and the naked eye in Cadgan's body, and this unknown substance would be responsible for causing him to go unconscious. The elixir, once in his bloodstream, would be hopefully attached to the substance and allow its detection, and hopefully research. Interesting idea, though it seems like a rather big leap in logic. Did he have a reason to suspect that this might work? Or was he desperately looking for clues? The next few pages are filled with different iterations of the same elixir. Considering all of them have been crossed out, I imagine that they didn't work. If I'm right about Cadgan being examined by other doctors before Dad, then... I begin flipping the pages backwards, paying close attention to any changes to the writing. It is then that I see it, a page penned by another hand. I throw Paolo another look before holding the book with both hands and hunching over. Slowly, I inspect the page. It is a description of Cadgan's symptoms, as well as a report of one of his visits. Just as I thought, their examination went the same way as ours. Then Dad really didn't commit a mistake, right? What else is here? I'm about to go to the next page when my eyes stop at the name near the beginning of the report. It says that it's the subject's name, but that doesn't make any sense. Squinting, I read the report from the beginning this time. Immediately, my heart begins slowing down until I could swear that it stopped entirely. What is this? Subject 7, name Bedelia, species wolf, sex female, age 37. The subject suffers from loss of consciousness, seemingly at a fixed time of the day. While it is unconscious, the life force within its body runs rampant. However, no further symptoms manifest. Attempts to forcibly wake up the subject have been useless. It always regains consciousness around an hour later. A change has arisen in this peculiar subject. The rate at which it loses consciousness has accelerated, rendering it unconscious 2 times a day. The rate has accelerated again. Further observation is needed to determine a new cycle. Again, additionally, physiological changes are taking place in the subject's body. Please consult its personal record for details. And then, written by a different hand, is this. The subject has expired. Autopsy not possible. I frantically start flipping through the book. Every few pages is another name. A familiar description of symptoms concluded with the same final note. But why is this here? Why is Dad's writing in this book too? What was he not telling me? And just as suddenly, I stop as I reach the profile of Subject 11. Subject 11. Name Cadgan. Species wolf. Age 14. Subject 11. Cadgan. Wolf 14. I repeat it under my breath, yet it's so loud to my ears, it drones out every other thought and sound. My whispers turn into a chorus, which then chant out. Subject 11. Cadgan. Wolf 14. I give the pillow a good couple of squeezes before laying it on the bed. After one final glance at the room, I nod and walk up to the window. It's a sunny day today, and only a few wolves walk the road outside. It couldn't be a better time to bring Irnan in. I stop to look at my reflection in the glass. It looks terrible compared to the beautiful day outside. I barely got a wink of sleep last night. Cadgan, for once, didn't look so well himself. I wonder if Silvereth has already begun hounding him, or if Manuel made him run some errands last night. Most likely the former. He noticed my poor state, but I told him that I had pulled a muscle moving the crates last night, and that the pain had kept me up for the better part of the night. I'm not sure that he believed me, but at least he didn't press further. It did cross my mind to just mention the book, but would that have been a good idea? Do I truly want to dig up what might be his worst memories? What little I can gather of the story told by this list of patients is horrible. I don't want to make him relive that. But that's far from the only thing disturbing me. I exit into Finbar's workshop, wiping my hands. Everything looks perfect. I'll be bringing Irnan in a few minutes if that's all right. Of course, Hector. As long as you read another chapter of my novel, that is. Sure, I can spare a moment once I'm back. Although, I get the feeling that Irnan will take over for me as your reader while he's here. You can count on it, but still, to think old Irnan is back, if only it was under happier circumstances. Are you two friends? No, but for the most part of my life, he was always at the shrine, you know. He was sort of like a neighbor. My children used to be terrified of him when they were little, though. That frown of his precedes his exile then. I take a deep breath, letting my next words stew in my mind until I feel ready to utter them. It's a tragedy what happened to the other priests. It's no wonder he resisted coming back to town for so long. Finbar chokes at the mention of the other priests, and then clears his throat. Yes, well, nobody knows what happened to them. Some think that the Duke had to do with their disappearance, but we aren't sure. I was worried about you and your father back then. You can't imagine the relief the first time that I saw you coming back from the mansion. And did any of the others return? Finbar looks confused at first. But when he catches the meaning of my words, he lowers his face with a frown that makes him seem that much more older. I heard my father took in a few guests while I was away. That's what Manuel had said, the time that I asked him if his father had taken a child under his roof. I thought that he was mistaken about there being more people, but now I know that he must have been talking about Cadgan and his parents. But they couldn't have been the only ones. There were just too many people in that book. And Cadgan is the only one that made it back. I didn't see anybody else. I know, Hector. Your dad said the same thing. Did he? Sorry, I don't remember. Oh, he didn't talk about it in front of you. But yes, I did ask him to keep an eye out for the missing people, or any clue at least. But he came back empty-handed. But I guess I'm not too surprised he eventually told you about this. That's how you found out, right? Did something happen for you to bring this up now? His voice carries curiosity, concern, and a little hint of hope. However, I shake my head. No, I was just thinking out loud. I'm sorry for mentioning something so unpleasant. I'll go get Ira now. The bell rings as I open the door, drowning out his words, but I don't look back. I cross my arms and glare at the ground as I walk towards the hospital. I feel wrong, as though that there's something perverse slithering inside my veins, running circles in my body. Dad said the same thing. I didn't see anybody but Cadgan at the mansion, sure, and while I never had access to Leopoldino's laboratory, I seriously doubt that they were keeping dozens of wolves captive there. But he must have seen that book, right? Leopoldino must have given it to him the day that we arrived. I'm sure of it. That must have been where he learned about Cadgan's condition. Why didn't he tell Finbar about the people that he mentioned there? What else was he hiding from him? And from me? What were we really doing in that mansion? Why did all those people die? Where did their bodies end up, and why was an autopsy not possible? Let's be rational, Hector. Perhaps Leopoldino caught wind of a rare disease and quarantined the infected in his mansion. But then why all the secrecy? Why did he not tell that to the townspeople? Besides, no one ever mentioned an outbreak of some disease here. That's not something people forget about easily. Oblon would know. As I arrive at the hospital, I try to calm my breath and the shaking in my hands. Keep it together, Hector, at least until Irnan is relocated. I enter the reception to be met with an unexpected view. All the other doctors and nurses, all my co-workers, silently waiting there. Some of them are sitting down, but most are leaning against a wall, looking towards the main ward every once in a while. Paolo looks at me and then points at the door. I swallow saliva and, step by step, get closer to it. The doorknob feels so cold as I grip it. I worry that I might leave a cut across my hand. The main ward is empty except for Irnan's bed. There he is, sitting on his bed, both hands on his lap, but he is not alone. The priest notices me approaching, and so does his visitor. Ah, speaking of the devil. Hector, yes? Please close the door behind you. Hector, this is Father Silvereth. Introduce yourself if you know what's good for you. Aha, please, Elder. No need to scare the little thing. The dragon stands up and in a second closes the distance between us. He takes my hand in a firm handshake, smiling reassuringly, ominously. I am Father Silvereth. I believe that you were there while I was burning the haze leaf. It is a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance. I'm Hector of Oblon. I am a doctor. The dragon nods and lets go of my hand. I can't help but take a step back. Were you two talking about me? Yes, you came up among many other topics. Well now, Elder. It's been a fruitful conversation, but now I'd like to see the shrine, your shrine. But seeing as you're in no state to take me there, why don't you act as my guide instead, Hector? I'm here for Irnan, actually. I was supposed to be moved somewhere else today. I don't intend to take that much of your time. As I said, I only need somebody to show me the way to the forest shrine. The head doctor will understand. He is a reasonable man. reasonable enough to know better than to do anything that could interfere with his investigation. I seek guidance in Iernan's face, but he just remains silent, looking tense. In the end, I nod and the dragon claps his hands, making me jump. Excellent. Let us be on our way. As we leave the hospital and walk into the forest, Silverth hums a song behind me. Constantly hearing his voice keeps me on edge. Then it stops, and so do his footsteps. I turn around to see him looking up at the tree, his claws softly caressing its bark. A most peculiar town, don't you think? I suppose. What with the valley, the legends, and all that. The dragon hums, squinting at the tree. I follow his gaze, trying to tell what grabbed his attention, but it looks like any other tree in the forest to me. Then his attention turns to me. I try to behave as usual as he sizes me up, but I can't help but break eye contact. With a mysterious smile, Silverth lowers his hand. Let's continue. All right. This time he catches up to me. His gaze feels heavy on my shoulders. By the way, I apologize for the rushed introduction earlier. I am Father Silverth, proud member of the Order of the Red Sun. Order of... what? Are you not an Inquisitioner? Have you seen an Inquisitor, son? They usually sport armor and a worthy sword. But the Inquisition and my order do work closely, yes. What's the difference? Our order is composed of humble priests, dedicated to understanding the world and concerned with making sure that all is well in nature. We are men and women of God. The Inquisition, meanwhile, they are... He pauses and measures his words, with the slightest grin on his lips. They describe themselves as decisive, bold, utterly uncompromising, problem solvers through and through. They are always so busy with all their campaigns, trials, and prisoners. So busy, in fact, that they sometimes invite us to come and take a look at things when they can't do so themselves. His smile, along with his eyes, grows sharper. The people of Renai are lucky. Had I not been available and willing, there'd be heads flying by now. But worry not. As long as I am successful, it won't come to that, and I always carry out my duties. Why did I have to ask? God, don't let him see that you're nervous. He'll tear you apart in seconds. In any case, Oblon, I've passed through there. Small, beautiful village. It's a shame, the misfortune that has befallen it. But I do wonder, how does a badger from so far away wind up here, becoming friends with the priest and his apprentice to boot? It must be a fascinating story. Your story must be fascinating too. Ah, not at all. I am but a humble islander, born and raised in a small port where ships would stop and resupply in their voyages. I spent the better part of my life isolated from the world, only listening to the sailors' tall tales. I don't have much of an interest to share, I'm afraid. I know you're keeping a secret from me, by the way. My heart almost jumps out of my throat. I turn to see him. I bit more violently than I intended, and try to fire out a retort. But one word is all that I manage to get out before my esophagus closes up. The wind, the rustling, and the birdsong around us all blur together into a noise. What? He grins, enjoying playing with his food. No need to play dumb, son. The elder already told me you know about that. Took an awful lot of convincing, too. As I said, I am no inquisitor. I won't roast a good doctor just because he knows a little more than he ought to. Little by little, my thoughts slow down and I come to understand what he means. Of course, Iernan told him that I know about the Dark God. You really won't? It'd be such a waste. You could probably save many more lives than I'd spare by reducing you to cinders. He figuratively swats away the idea, making a disgusted expression. Let's get to the point. You're not from this village. You're practically a stranger. Iernan said that you used to visit, but that was long ago. And you returned only around 2 months ago, too late to be involved with the apparition of the demon allegedly tormenting the Duke. Allegedly? So he's not sure a demon is involved yet. I must have left my surprise show because he chuckles. Seeing as you're an educated man and know about the Dark God, I was hoping that you'd be interested in exchanging ideas. There is something fishy about this demon's story, and I'm hoping a different perspective will clear things up. He says that he doesn't suspect me, but he might just be trying to get my guard down. That said, refusing to talk won't make me any less suspicious. Either way, I better play along. If I choose the right words, I might get some information out of him, rather than the other way around. I'm not sure that I'll be much help, but I can try. I just want your opinion. Perhaps you'll catch a detail that I didn't. First, let's go over the facts. What I am investigating is the haze leaf that appeared in those ruins. It is an undeniable sign of a dark god stirring in its sleep, but how that happened is still a mystery. The popular theory is that a demon did it. It's what the Duke believes, isn't it? Indeed. It's almost like he's been taken in by the fervor with which the wolves tell their legends. But there haven't been any demons in Renai for centuries. So you are a skeptic, eh? I heard the Inquisition already investigated this town before, and that's the conclusion that they came to. Yes, but how did the haze leaf show up at the ruins then? Wouldn't that be because of the Duke's prodding? It's possible. But then, why is there no more haze leaf or any corruption between the valley and those ruins? The amphitheater is pretty far from the valley. I suppose it is strange for the haze leaf to pop up so close to town when there's no obvious corruption anywhere in between. I don't know. Maybe somebody brought some haze leaf all the way from there, from the valley? That raised a bunch of other questions, but I doubt that's what happened. When you work in this field for long enough, you learn a pest like the haze leaf isn't something that you can just plant anywhere and it'll grow. Nature has means to defend itself. No, it needs a vector through which to break into nature or to be close to corrupted ground. That only leaves the demon an explanation then. If a demon went there and performed some perverse ritual, all the pieces would fit, yes. Except, if you were a demon here in Renai and the Duke was trying to break into your territory, what would you do? I drive him out, I guess? That is what everyone here says because that is how it goes in Renai's legends. Remember, however, there are the same legends that they sealed the Dark God away with. They are a mockery, a satire. A demon, the real deal, would be quite amicable to the Duke. Demons weaponize the truth, and who yearns for that more than an entitled scientist? And he'd be a great target. Anything the Dark God grants him, he'd try to make it his and spread it all over the world, like those silly glasses. He points to the prismalian glasses on my belt. Why, a real demon would use their finest flattery and lead him straight into the valley's heart, which is why it puzzles me that we have this expedition that just can't succeed and a Duke claiming a demon is tormenting him. The breeze suddenly turns, shaking the top of the trees and cooling the inside of my ears. Just as Renai has an unusual relationship with its demons, its last remaining demon has an unusual relationship with its dark god. Well, am I mistaken? Oh, no, I don't think so. Manuel, he's obsessed with his research. I can't say that he wouldn't strike a deal with the demon for its sake. It's truly a puzzling situation. Suddenly the dragon's footsteps sound much closer. Indeed, there is another possibility, however. There is? What if there is somebody besides the Duke, with greater potential to empower the Dark God? Somebody we've overlooked? Or they are ordinary under any other circumstances? It makes sense for the demon to reach out for that person instead. Don't you agree? Is he trying to imply that's what I am? No. How could I be any more dangerous than the Duke? That's absurd. It's quite a leap in logic. Of course. Again, I'm just throwing ideas. It doesn't mean anything, I assure you. But now you see the conundrum that I find myself in. I have two hypotheses, but neither fits perfectly. I don't know how to help you. If this was me diagnosing a patient, I'd assume that I missed something fundamental and start over from scratch. Yes, I suppose you're right. Silvereth quiets down and looks away. He seems lost in thought, genuinely so. I sigh with relief when the forest shrine comes into view. I point at the shack barely peeking out from behind the building. That's where Irden keeps his text. He seems to care a great deal for them, so, be careful? Of course, friend. Thank you. I look at the dragon and immediately notice a damp spot on the side of his abdominal region. He follows my gaze and laughs when he notices it. Excuse me. He produces a handkerchief and presses it against his clothes, rubbing the dampness off. It's transparent and somewhat viscous. Saliva? Oh, one more thing, son. About the priest's apprentice. How long have you known each other? Cadgan? 11 years. Why? Have you, by any chance, noticed something irregular about him? Perhaps some sudden change in physique or character? Well, it's been 9 years. He grew up. I mean, when you were young. I furrow my brow, actually pondering his question. Any sudden change in Cadgan? That does ring a bell. His behavior always changed upon waking up from a cyclical lethargy-induced sleep. I don't know why he's asking this, but I doubt Cadgan's mood changing as a consequence of his sickness would be of any use to him. Hell, I wouldn't tell him even if it was. No, I don't think so. Interesting. Silverant closes his eyes and nods. I just stand there, and, after a moment, begin walking away. If that is all, then I'll go back now. Oh, before you do, I'd appreciate it if you could just think back to your time in the manor. Why's that? I'm sorry, I lied earlier. There is a third possibility regarding the demon hypothesis. See, it could be that the demon is still fulfilling a past pact, perhaps even one with the old Duke Leopoldino. What makes you say that? To be honest, Renai has been in my sight for a rather long time. Are you aware that Leopoldino conducted his own expedition into the valley, and that he was successfully reached its heart? I heard that he reached the valley's depths, yes? The Inquisition kept a close eye on him after that. They didn't know what he brought back with him, you see. However, nothing came from it. Just a few years later, he went on to invent his Earth Helpers and lived the rest of his life as a rich, if regretful and miserable man. And that struck me as peculiar. What made him so unhappy? What troubled him when he had everything that he ever wanted within his reach? This isn't to say that money won't bring you happiness, but doesn't it seem rather unnatural that a man so rich couldn't even find a vice? Some respite from his pain, even if temporary? He was miserable, I assure you. Miserable. Irnin would be so happy to hear this. I can't help but smile a little for him. All right. What are you getting at? Doesn't this story of Leopoldino reaching the heart of the valley and then achieving success sound familiar? It's what you said that the demon would do for Manuel. Exactly. What if Leopoldino did something? Something really bad. And only now we're witnessing the consequences. That is why I'm also looking to the mansion's history. If my timeline's right, you were there not long after Leopoldino returned from the valley. I want you to try to remember anything unusual that you might have witnessed during your stay there. You might have seen something and overlooked it at the time. I'll need to think about this. I'm not sure. Of course, of course. We have time to spare. For now. I make to walk away, but the dragon remains in place, smiling blankly, like he was expecting me to stop to ask him one last question. Say, exactly how long ago did Leopoldino return from the valley? He scratches his scaly chin, looking up. I say 12. No, 11 years ago. Leopoldino returned from the valley 11 years ago. He smiles warmly. What a coincidence, right? It is dark. The voices of the patrons downstairs have vanished, replaced by the occasional gust hitting the window and the flames softly dancing inside my lamp. I'm sitting on the desk, pen in hand, tapping the piece of paper before me. It's never easy writing to Aunt Nora, but now I'm truly stumped. Where do I even begin untangling the mess that is in my head? How do I explain to her now that there is an inquisitor in town? No, maybe it'd be better to omit that matter altogether. Same with Runsky, obviously. Let's see then. I reconnected with Cadgan. I helped make the cure for an endemic snakebite. I'm helping Finbar write a novel. But even when I come up with ideas, my hands are frozen in place, and I can't put any of them into words. And they don't linger for long either, as my mind returns to what Silvereth said. 11 years ago, I met Cadgan, but also Leopoldino successfully reached the heart of the valley. It might be a coincidence, but I can't stop thinking about it. And then there's the matter of the missing people too. It doesn't matter how much I try, I can't remember anything regarding that. Whatever happened, I doubt that it was related to Runsky, as Silvereth thinks. But what did Dad do? What was his part in all of that? I sigh, putting the pen down and rubbing my temples. Orwell had mentioned the Duke having this museum back when I was looking into Renai's demons. I thought that'd be a waste of time, even more so after I visited Irnan. But if I just wanted to return to the mansion to look around then... I open my eyes, and after some more deliberation, my hands jump into action. Am I being a fool, blindly plunging myself into these depths when I know in my heart of hearts that whatever I find will be too terrible to bear? That is, if I find anything at all. It's been so long that any hint of whatever might have happened is likely long gone. But still, I need to try. I want to understand what happened to Cadgan and what kind of man my father truly was. We set out before the break of dawn. There is not a single pair of eyes to witness us. The birds are quiet, the trees still. The sleepless elders dare not come out after the chill, and even the beasts of burden stay back, sleeping on the stable's floors. We do not look back at the homes and streets disappear behind us. As Renai's embers fade, we have for company only the comfort of Teresa's shirt. I followed the old signs deep into the woods, edging ever closer to the valley's threshold. Oddly shaped rocks and unassuming tree carvings lead our way from the beaten path towards a ravine. The one safe path down is visible only if you look at it from the right angle. At the bottom of the chasm runs an old creek. I walk upstream, eyes away, looking for a small stack of rocks. They lead me towards a path hidden by the vegetation up to the other side of the ravine. Not a difficult hike if you know the ancient signs used by the priests of Renai to navigate the valley, but almost impossible otherwise. Once I climb up the other side, I sit on a rock and put down the bag that I had been carrying. I allow myself a moment to think and watch the sun rising from the horizon, extending its rosy fingers from the treetops far ahead. I catch the silhouette of birds taking off as their songs echo throughout the ravine. The ground is damp from a light rain the night before, and the soil lets out a rich aroma that foretells a bountiful harvest. I keep my senses sharp, sight, hearing, smell, searching for even the distant hint that we're being followed. Can't be too careful now with that inquisitioner around. The wind howls as it bounds through the ravine, and the birds here, unaccustomed to hunters, sing louder than anywhere else in Renai. In moments like these, it's easy to believe that this world is at peace. I look down at my hands, shaking, chilly, even if the winter is so far. The walk calmed them down, but anxiety, that's what Dad calls it, a fire in one's core as thoughts of thousand possible futures flood in, all mixed into a tangible web of uncontrollable factors. I can almost see it from the bird's perspective, all of Renai laid bare, the valley with its infected heart, the buildings in town, people and beasts of burden no bigger than a grain of sand. In this vast game board, just what actions are available to us? How will each move impact our adversaries and their decisions, and how can we anticipate them? And in this vast conflict, what role will luck have? All this storm of thoughts coalesce into a single thorn, anxiety, an emotion, and yet one that I struggle to conceptualize. Before I could grasp the sensations it carries, It was gone. All that is left is the chill and the shaking hands, like arcane signs left by a long-gone priest. Just as I think that I'm back to the source of this emotion, the amphitheater overtaken by haze leaf, my ears flicker. Have patience, Rain. Just a little more. No, it's fine. I was just thinking back to last night, Caddy. I really outdid myself, I think. I bet everyone in town's talking about that trap that I set up. The Duke will have a hard time finding people for an expedition anytime soon. The way that guy's eyes shot up in panic, you'd think that I'm some kind of monster from it. But I was just hiding in a bush. What do you think? Did I do good? I can hear the smile in his voice just as well as I can feel the weight of my silence, and that delay in my response is enough to clue him in on what's to come. Before I can muster a word or even a thought, his tail is already tucked between his legs. He tries to recede and hide under the surface, but his presence is unforgettable, unmistakable. We are two animals sharing a cage, and there is no way out. And yet, my pulse quickens. At the back of my head, I become aware of how easy it is to run to the woods and hide. Thoughts of hiding places and forgotten spells skitter. But this time, I can't let it slip by. I reach down below the surface and grab him by the scruff of the neck. Rain, we have to be careful. That man, the Inquisitioner, is dangerous. He doesn't dare look me in the eyes. I can feel every turmoil in him, and above them all is the fear of my disapproval. Seeing him in such a state, I can still feel a pang of sorrow. The irony doesn't escape me that I can so clearly feel for him, but not for myself. Rain, look at me. Things have become so much more complicated now, all because of what happened at the amphitheater. The Inquisition is not afraid of violence. They can hurt us, Teresa, Dad, Hector, everyone in Renai. And this is not part of the plan, is it? We specifically did not want the Inquisition here. Keeping my voice flat and neutral takes more effort than I care to admit. Even then, he struggles and launches the first thought that comes to mind. But we didn't plan for Hector showing up either, and that turned up all right in the end. We can figure out a way. You're afraid of the Inquisitioner finding out about your hands, right? Fear. That's what it is, right? Fear of what might happen, of Renai's streets painted in blood. I know just a trick to make him think that your hands work fine. It'll be all too easy if you just follow my instructions. I bet he's right. Compared to him, I lack the drive to learn magic, and the reckless abandon with which he plots to use it. I handed both of those over a long time ago. Even so, if he can pull off a trick, then so can I. But it's not what we need right now, and the handful of seconds that it takes for me to think it through is enough to make him fidget again. It might trick him at a glance, but you'll be using the eye's essence as a catalyst, and that would be much easier for him to notice, and far worse for us. There would be no clearer confession of guilt than that. He'd have us executed on the spot. He looks away, but this time his presence does not recede. He grows quiet and still, and for a moment I feel the chaos underneath his surface settling down. Just as the connection forms between us, I'm assaulted by the chill. My hands start shaking again. I feel a terrible weight on my back. My eyes hurt, and that is just a fraction of what he's feeling as the weight of his actions hits him. At the same time, he catches a glimpse of the game board that I've laid out, and how much the situation has worsened with the Inquisitor's arrival. A new player has been introduced, a knowledgeable and unpredictable one, and far more dangerous than Manuelino. Our pool of available productive moves has shrunk to nearly a fatal degree. The reality of the situation finally dawns on him. I fucked up, didn't I? What are we gonna do? Can we still keep everyone safe? Is Irnan going to get better? Will they hurt Hector? I'm going to figure it out. I'll find a way. My voice comes out flat, clear, fearless. That's how he sees it, sees me. And that belief alone is enough to soften his turmoil. Enough resting, let's move on. I gave the ravine one last look. confirming that we weren't followed, and set off. Walking lets me put away all those dark thoughts and focus on the moment, the crunching of the leaves underfoot, the scent of the bark, grass, sap, and decomposition. The sun proceeds in its march, violent giving way to blue in the sky above us. The night's chill is dispelled. In the distance far above us, a hawk calls for its mate. Closer from the trees surrounding us, there is the chirping of common birds. I focus on each sensation, acknowledging and naming them one by one until Rain's turmoil subsides. But he does not dip back into the depths. He lingers at the edge, following my gaze as it travels across the trees in this area, examining their unique features. Close to the ground, their trunks are thick, but then out gradually until 2/3 of the tree's height. At that point, it spreads out and forms 5 branches. 4 more or less are aligned with each other, with the 5th bending further down or aligning itself with a different direction. Each branch then repeats the same pattern, once or twice more. The leaves it produces have 5 large veins again, 4 more or less parallel to each other, with a 5th aberrant one. The people from Brunei are too accustomed to the Eye Valley's oddities. They might get an impression that the trees here are peculiar, but they wouldn't be able to put a finger on why. A fresh outsider, however, from a glance would notice that they look like arms. Each one a forearm jutting out from the earth with 5 thick fingers crowning it, which in turn repeat the same structure. They would notice, too, a pattern in these woods. The entire patches of it grow right-handed and the others left-handed. There is a logic to it. All one has to do is find the exact line where the right meets left and follow it deeper into the woods. There, they'll find the Shaman's Tree. I let out all those thoughts linger in my mind, allowing Rain to listen to every word. Little by little, the embers of his turmoil turn cold. Can you believe it, Rain? Long ago, in the times of the ancient Renai, when our people lived in the valley's heart, there existed a massive network of roots and trees. They began with a single sapling, touched by the eye's essence, whose roots became so vast that it began sprouting the new trees across the land. Just imagine a being so colossal and so incredibly old, outliving ancient Renai's golden age and remaining undetected, forgotten, utterly at peace. It reached all the way here, so far from the valley's heart that even if it was still connected to the original web of roots, the eye's influence was diluted on the way out. After the cataclysm, the network of roots was fragmented. The eye's essence could no longer reach this far, and so today the trees here have the aspect of the valley's innermost heart, while retaining none of its power. I can almost feel his weight, as though he was hanging from my back, arms draped over my shoulders, with his ear aimed at my mouth. He drinks up every word, even if he already knows it. All the chaos, confusion, and grief is put to rest, and in its place new visions take shape of a different time in this same branch of the woods, when the world felt simpler and kinder, even if it wasn't. In his recollection, all that is tender and loving gains twice the color. The Shaman Tree, swaying up ahead, almost seems to beckon him to its peaceful roots, to the resting place of the long-lost kin. Familiar voices echo through the woods. He carries an overfilled basket of offerings, each bountiful fruit at the flower of its youth, ripe and all ready to be savored. When I try to recollect on my own, they always come faded and muffled, as if I only remembered how they should sound, the words that I would describe them with, and not how they felt. But when Rain does it, every color is vibrant, every sound specific and rich, every scent threatens to bring back tears to my eyes. A part of me wants to believe those memories are mine. Another cannot forget how foreign each sensation is, as though this is but a recollection of something that never happened. If I could see my reflection in that memory, would I recognize my own face? Would there even be a person in the mirror? But even with all this doubt, I cannot shake a deep, heart-wrenching longing for this past, for a world that will not return, even if these memories are not my own. I long for them. His hug tightens, his mouth drifts closer to my ear. It is nostalgia, Caddy. The lions call it Saudade. Thank you for indulging me. It's very kind of you. You're welcome. We should bring Hector here one day. He'd like the trees. Would he? I figured seeing arms growing from the ground would make a good doctor like him uneasy. He'd like it if you brought him here, I'm sure. You could spend the day talking about bark and roots and he'd be drinking it from the palm of your hand. You could sit together on the rock and overlooking the ravine, counting the fish swimming in the river below, and he'd be as happy as if he was sniffing my crotch. And then you'd lay your hand on his waist and pull him in, slip a finger under the waistband of his pants just to give him a hint. Trust me, he wouldn't mind the freaky trees. You could tell him that they have eyes and he'd put on a show for them. His voice is dripping with excitement, and I feel it affecting my body. I can't help it. And if you don't want to do it, I'm sure that I could make it work. I could show him the trees and spit it in a way that he'd enjoy. How about this? What if they really were the arms of colossal creatures from the valley? You know how it is back there. Beasts this large wouldn't look out of place. Or maybe they grew from the corpses of the enemies who tried to invade it. I bet the ancients weren't above entombing a poor fuck inside a living tree. You know how creative they were. As Rain lays out his idea, I cannot but notice the reckless enthusiasm. How each link in the chain follows quickly to the next with so little thought to consequences. Well, that is my fault, so I can't understand the way that he thinks, why he is this way, and how to treat him. I can cherish him. And yet, I cannot but feel an icy shard of rage stabbing me. As much as I understand him, I don't have to bow down and ignore the consequences. How bitter it is that, of all the emotions, rage is the one that is still truly mine. Those are some fun ideas. But after what happened in the amphitheater, it's best if we don't bring Hector to fuck on holy sites. There is no telling what will happen. Besides, it's disrespectful to the shamans. His ears droop and I swear that I can feel his tail tucking between his legs. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And we'll use protection. Good. From amidst the trees I catch a glimpse of it, a thicker, taller trunk, unlike any others in these woods. It is in fact a pair of intertwined trees, two arms spiraling together with their fingers interwoven. This single shaman tree is the only one that is left outside the valley proper, and all the single-armed trunks in this part of the woods radiate from it. The back of the left hand, bursting with vibrant leaves, rests on the palm of the right. It bears the weight of the two, yet its lower position means its leaves struggle to reach as high. But what difference does it make when they originate from a single clump of overgrown roots? All the sustenance, all they have, is shared. Besides, my true goal is not the tree itself, but what lies beneath it, deep down the cave entrance at the top of which the tree is sprouting. We're here. Oh, Shaman Tree, welcome us into your dark embrace. The spirits, I know, must be observing us from the depths, but theirs is the mantle of shadow. The chill creeping up our spine comes from their touch. A gust of air blows from the crypt, damp but not stale. Even the humidity is sacred. The shaman tree roots, reaching down to the depth of the world, drink the purest water that no artificial well could ever reach. How paradoxical is the eye's power. The corruptive influence that destroyed Renai is the same that empowered a being to reach the quietest, most peaceful sea. War and peace made manifest. I take an oil lamp hidden in the entrance by our handprints on the wall and try to light it despite the uncooperative wind. Rain drifts forward to my consciousness. Do you think that it was a mistake? Approaching Hector, I mean. I managed to get an ember, but the chill, damp breeze blows it out. No. Looking back, I should have been bolder and taken the chance when he approached, even if I was still hurt. We'd have figured it out as we went anyway. It wouldn't have been a problem, so I can't say that your approach was a mistake. But that little trick with the amphitheater sure was. I rub my temples. You know, I don't like saying it, but I told you, I had a bad feeling about it. You misunderstood your relationship with the eye, much like the ancients. I know. Whether the cause for the haze leaf was Rain looking at the amphitheater in particular, or just him at all, I cannot say for sure. But had we been more careful, we'd have figured out earlier to use the suppression sigil for those occasions. Still, I am not blameless. I should have known how Rain would react, how impulsive he'd become. I was unprepared to deal with it. But no point crying over spilled milk. We have to look forward and find a solution to this problem. There has to be a clean way out of it. Rain brushes his hand over my chest, teasing me. And there's the matter of you and Hector. You deserve love and happiness too, brother. And he does love you. Well, Cadgan, aren't you happy that, in this precarious world that we live in, there is someone who yearns for you? I suppose that I should be happy, except it's hard for me to think of love when an inquisitor is threatening to chop off our head. But can I even feel happiness? Or did it become entirely his? Well, to me that is one more reason to go ahead and enjoy what time we have. How about... He makes a point of hemming and hawing, pretending to think, when I can easily tell exactly what's on his mind already. I know. You should invite Hector to the Great Lake Games. You won't be competing, everyone will be having fun, and you and him can just enjoy a day together and get intimate at night. You could give him the Renai special and go with him to the woods. Take a bottle of wine, some bread and cheese, and f*** him against a tree. A Renai staple if there ever was one. Yeah, now is your chance to show me how it's done. Perhaps. Come on, if you don't ask him out, I'll have to play the wingman. Don't tell me that you didn't want to grab him that time in the river and shove that big dumb nose of his between your balls. To open up his mouth and defile that throat right there and then. To make him choke until your dick is all that he can taste and smell. And you know what the best part is? He'd be so grateful for it. I get another ember, and this time it stays. Enough horsing around. Now it's time that we pay our respect. I feel a sharp shift in Rain's tone as he drops the jokes, and at the edge of my consciousness I can notice a change in him. In a moment, he's taken over by the solemn duty of our station. I extend my right hand, and he copies with the left, first phasing his hand over mine, and then shifting it slightly so that our fingers intertwine. We speak as one. Venerable ancestors, survivors of the Eye Awakening, heroes of a bygone era, great leaders of our people. In our time of most need we come, seeking guidance. Please grant this air a glimpse. Our throats tighten. A spark. Rain closes his eyes, mine stay open. Of your guidance, so that our people may yet again overcome this trial. Please grant us safe passage to your place of eternal rest, venerable ancestors. In the distance behind us a hawk shrieks. The wind howls, leaves and branches sway. There is no great revelation, no divine intervention, no flash of sigil magic. The world, the order of nature, moves on in utter indifference. Rain bows while I remain standing, holding our lamp, gazing at the dark entrance of the crypt. Ancestors, mother, father, guide our step. Together we step into the darkness. The descent is easy. The path is wild and tall, so that even a wolf of my size can go in without any discomfort. That is why they chose in here, after all. The floor itself is even, and as we follow the spiral staircase down, I catch a glimpse of faded cave paintings in between the tombs carved into the wall. I hesitate as I catch rudimentary drawings on the wall. The lines are thin and inelegant, as though drawn by children. Then my gaze goes to the small skeleton laid to rest there. So small it barely fills the tomb. The Shaman Tree's roots have embraced it. I catch only glimpses of its bones. We proceed with our downward spiral. The deeper we go, the wilder the roots become, up to the point that they cover the regular surface of the stairs. I am careful not to trip. Shaman Tree, forgive our trespass. I cannot help but feel a pang of pride as Rain's sense of respect comes out. I did not give this aspect to him. Like any rowdy pup ought to, he learned it himself, lesson by lesson. Even when he catches my thoughts, his concentration does not falter. We reach the bottom of the staircase. The walls around us widen, And at last we reach the crypt, a large room, most of it consumed by the central mass of the shaman tree roots. And resting against them, embraced by it, venerable ancestors. They slumber amongst the roots, content in the knowledge that the shaman tree accepted their earthly remains, all they had, all that they once were, all that made them entrusted to this quiet, faithful colossus. Theirs was a death beyond fear, for they knew the I inside of them would be absorbed and diluted by the shaman tree. Before them we knelt. I stretch out my right hand while Rain mimics the motion with his left. Grant us the strength that once helped you through the treacherous valley, the wisdom with which you lead our people, the resolve to survive against all odds. Ancestors, please grant us a sign. Point us to the fruitful path. Rain's voice cracks, and it leaks through to my own. Please, I beg of you. Our people suffer under the hands of a cruel lord, and now they threaten us with yet greater violence. Once more he glimpses all the pieces on the board. The weight of his actions hits once more, and his mind overflows with emotion, a barrage of visions born of fear, uncertainty, pain, and loss. It's a flood in the truest sense. My thoughts are overwhelmed by the intensity of it all, and my senses become muffled, as if I was diving into a deep, turbulent river. I lost track of my own body, of my thoughts, but despite the chaos, there is a hidden logic in this whirlpool. Even with my eyes closed, even with all of my senses muffled, I know how to navigate it. I relax, breathe in, and allow the current to carry me. When I open my eyes, I find myself hunched over, staring at the root-covered floor. My mouth moves on its own. It is my fault. I should have thought it through. For a moment, our thoughts truly come together, and we see it. Ranai aflame, the streets bathed in blood, with the sick silhouettes of the Inquisitors moving across the streets. Every harrowing emotion, every curse and wail, it all leaps out and bites onto us, maims the landscape of our mind. It is always like this. For a split second, as we hand control to each other, our thoughts and emotions mingle. We think as one, but it can never last. What is done cannot be undone. And that knowledge stains Rain's mind. A bile rises through his throat, and his voice flows with regret, like I've never felt before. It is all my fault. He falters. His trunk leans down as though about to topple, but I will not allow it. Through sheer force of will, I wrench back control of my arms and grab our throat. Even if I did not control our mouth, I whisper in his ear. Peace, brother. You are a proud wolf of Ranai, a true heir. You will not prostrate yourself in such a way. I pull his gaze to the remains of our predecessors. Our ancestors would not allow it. Now dry your tears and pray with me. From the ice clutches you have delivered us, most esteemed twice wizened ancestors. The wolves of Ranai forget, O shamans, of our duties, our rights, our old burdens. Our darkest, restless nights go without song, and frightful nightmares threaten to slip through. Venerable ancestors of Ranai, many-branched shamans touched by the eye, guide our people to the one fruitful path. And yet, no guidance comes. 100 times we pray until the last shreds of sunlight coming from the hallway behind us disappears. The ancestors do not see fit to respond. While Rain's voice falters and cracks, I look up to their remains, to their hollow eye sockets, their distant gaze. O venerable shamans, have you too abandoned us? Are we left with no guidance, no accomplice, no respite even in our people's bosom? Brother of mine, soul, branch of our tree. I continue holding Rain, praying even if his voice fails him and breaks into a sob. Words come to me, vivid and burning, each overflowing with purpose as if has been taught to me long ago. Whoever may hear my oath. It wells up inside of me, a kind of fire, all at once new and familiar. belonging to us both, but mine first and foremost. O vile sickness-stricken runt, day and night I will hunt. Wherever you may go, by hand will bring you low. However you may hide, you will find me by your side. Lord Runt, what is yours by right I will bring without respite. After our fearsome campaign, in the nightmares we shall remain. We, orphan wolves of Renai. And that was the end of the update. So we got a little bit more information about the whole connection between Runsky and Cadgan. We can see that both of them are, I guess you could say, one in the same. Maybe not one in the same, more so two sides of a coin, I guess would be a better analogy. They're sharing the same body. But it kind of seems that Runsky's presence, or I guess you could call him Rain, how Cadgan is calling him, is sort of overwhelming Cadgan at certain points. And that could probably explain why Cadgan was so unsure when Hector reappeared. He was so unsure about his feelings towards Hector and what to do, because part of the feelings that he was feeling weren't exactly his own. Like he was saying, a lot of what Runsky is made of is a part of Cadgan, and that kind of made Cadgan unable to feel specific things. Like, what did he say that he could not feel? Well, he cannot feel certain aspects of himself anymore. So maybe that is why he wasn't fully trusting in his ability to be with Hector. That would also explain why Runsky, or Rain, is so into Hector and so into just teasing him and, messing with him. Why he just wants to be with him and, fool around with him. It's because it's technically Cadgan. So it is possible that all of those feelings are what Cadgan would be feeling, or did feel in the past, at the very least. And like some people would say, like, oh, that's nice, Cadgan actually likes Hector. Well, yeah, Cadgan likes Hector, but like, it's being shown through someone else. But unfortunately, Cadgan can't really do anything about that. I'm curious what that one little last bit at the end was about, though. It makes it seem like... Honestly, I don't really know what to make of it. It seems that perhaps Rain / Runsky has sort of fallen out of favor. Maybe perhaps the ancestors that they are trying to speak with do not want to have anything to do with Runsky, and maybe they haven't wanted to do anything with him in a while, and that they would only ever acknowledge Cadgan. Because, I mean, right now it seemed like they only acknowledged Cadgan, even though they spoke to the both of them, because, I mean, the both of them are in the same body, but they only acknowledged Cadgan. They were speaking to him and only him, even though Runsky probably heard it. I mean, obviously we'll find out what's gonna happen later, or what exactly it is that voice or feeling was, telling them. There's also the issue of this order person. What he actually knows. I'm assuming he knows a lot more than he's letting on. and he's just sort of biding his time to confirm his suspicions about probably Hector and Cadgan. Or more so Hector, because Hector is the one that we can confirm is canoodling with demons, even though technically said demon is inside of Cadgan. And I know some people are gonna go, well, his name is Rain, it's not Runsky. It's literally the same demon. When he takes over Cadgan's body, or when he switches over, it's literally him. His clothes are literally even behind him. They're like literally laid off to the left of him. He just, has to change clothes. That kind of also brings up something interesting about Runsky. If he is able to leave Cadgan's head, or if Cadgan has to sort of, go to sleep or something, or like switch bodies, or like switch who's piloting the body at the moment, in order for him to be able to interact with Hector. That might also be why you never see the both of them at the same time, except for like right here. What else? The only time that we saw him at the same time was when he was whispering to Cadgan, which is exactly what he was doing in these previous scenes. What else? I am also curious about the whole disease thing, about all the other people that disappeared prior to Cadgan contracting this, was it cyclical lethargy? Because apparently they all had the same thing, but Cadgan was able to survive it. So again, I'm wondering, actually, I'm curious if the whole story that Runsky gave to Hector was real. When when Leopoldino first went to the Eye Valley, he might have found Runsky, but like Runsky was like, I'm not gonna deal with you. Give me a body or something like that. Or maybe it attached to somebody, but the people that he was attaching to couldn't sustain him, so they kept dying. But they also kept mutating and probably taking on demonic, like horns, and they basically look like the demons from the Eye Valley from the past. I'm wondering if eventually he attached to Cadgan, and prior to that, though, he was trying to find somebody to like kick the demon out from like other people that he was attaching to, because he didn't want to have anything to do with him, even though he got something out of it probably, which is success and money. But he was probably never able to do that, and that's why he became so depressed about it. And for Runsky, it's like, oh, well, I found a perfect body. This one works. I'm gonna stick in it. I'm gonna stay here. And Cadgan just sort of went with it, I guess, because he was healed, or I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Write it down in the comments, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you'd like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down into the link in the description, which will have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download the game and play it yourself. And they do have a Patreon, as you can see, because you can see the little icon right there. If you subscribe to their Patreon, you should get early access to builds of Devil's Gambit, and I believe, since I'm recording this on the 16th of November when it came out, the Patreon build, the newest Patreon build, will be coming out at the end of November on the 30th. So you will be getting early access to that next build really, really soon, in 2 weeks actually. And then a month later, that build will become public. So, you'll be getting them a month early. What else? And, you'll see what other stuff that they might offer. And yeah. If you want to support me, you can do so by, joining the channel and becoming a channel member, or, just subscribing to the channel, giving it a like of the video. All my videos, give them all likes. But yeah, and I also have my Ko-fi in case you want to support me through there, or, if you want to get me something nice, I have a throne. You don't have to buy me what's on the wish list. You could buy me something random. Totally random. It's up to you. I do have books on there. Books I want. Anyways, but yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.